Sandeep. Thank you so much for joining us for a roundtable today. It was a really
Course.
engaging conversation, and I wanted to follow up on some of the questions that we were also discussing in the discussions. But we talked a lot about how AI is beginning to progress through a lot of organizations, but people are still stuck in figuring out how do you begin to deploy this, how do you begin to adopt it into your organization. I'd love to get your perspective. What is holding organizations back?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Thank you for being here and also hosting such a fabulous event here. The way I think about this is AI is the game changer, right? When it thinks about what are the technologies that we are bringing to the organization, how are we looking at designing the workflows, how are we looking at designing the op model so we can get the best business outcome from those technological advances. Right now, the challenges that exist in the industry is the teams are developing a lot of operating models, but they're not necessarily executing on how do we bring this technology while we are upskilling our employee base, while we are upskilling our training, while we are bringing in, fresh eyes and ears and minds to really accelerate the AI adoption. So technology-wise, we are doing great, but the adoption side is where the challenges still exist.
Yeah. One of the things I see in my space as well is that we've been so excited about this technology over the last couple of years, and we're throwing out all these terminologies, but it comes back to who's actually adopting them, right? It's the employees. How do you begin to get them to be leveraging capabilities and tools? How do you upskill them? So just in terms of how do you advise a company to start thinking about their operating model?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, a lot of times what we have always said is transformations fail 70% of the time, or even 80% at the highest, right? Why? Because people are not adopting the curve, people are not adopting the change. So, what becomes absolutely essential is how do we make sure that we start with the why,
Mm.
right? We bring the workforce together, help them understand the reason why we are driving this change. What is next that should be expected from these changes, right? Is it, again, we go back to the ways of working, the operating mechanisms,
Mm.
the operating model design, and how do we bring this all together with the legacy knowledge
Yeah.
and a lot of institutional knowledge that we have that got us here, right? So your product knowledge, your infrastructure knowledge is still valuable.
Mhm.
Now, with upskilling of your team members and bringing AI on top of it,
Yeah.
those are three elements that have to come together to really drive that transformation for the organization. So that's realistically where a lot of rubber starts to meet the road.
Yeah. What advice would you give to an employee then?
Absolutely. Being open-minded, being curious, and being willing to learn, right? Because right now, the ways of working is going to be very different than what it was 10 years ago, or
Mhm.
when your job description was written 5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Very different what it would be 2 years from now. So somebody who is open to learning, having an open mindset, and also looking left and right and understanding what are the areas where we can further expand this technology, right?
Yeah.
Those are the employees that will certainly, nurture well within this capacity and within this space.
Yeah. And the thing that we're also seeing in our space as well, so the operating models is really important to start figuring out how does this human plus AI, organization look like in the future? And then also thinking through how do you get people to adopt these tools? So change management is becoming a really integral part of this operating model change as well. That's a key thing too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like with any digital transformation or enterprise transformation, how do we manage that change? How do we bring the entire workforce together? It becomes the success criteria for those transformations. So again, like, Simon Sinek once said, right? How do we start with the why so we can bring our
Mm.
whole population together
Yeah.
to help them understand that these are the better business outcomes we would expect once the transformation has happened, right?
Yeah.
And then how do we make sure that consistently we are driving that messaging throughout the organization,
Yeah.
but then also helping them understand that here are the areas where your workflows will get better. Here are the areas where we'll gain efficiencies, but
Yeah.
then how does that convert into a better business outcome,
Yeah.
right? So yes, you can gain a lot of productivity, but then how does that convert into a very tangible business metric? Are we improving margins? Are we improving our customer experience? Are we improving our user experience, right? So it has to convert into a better business outcome, which is how you get the attention from the business stakeholders and the business partners.
Mhm. Yeah, and the thing that we see in our research as well is that organizations that spend that time explaining the why to the employees as well at the individual level are more likely to succeed in their enterprise journey as well for AI.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
100% agree.
All right. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here.